So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to make a basic pop-up. So to make a basic pop-up, you start with 2 pieces of card. So I'm using a card here. It's not that thick, but it's thick enough you can get good fold out of it. So it would be about 200 GSM, which is kind of like a cardboard box you might use actually like for your cereal. So with the card, I'm going to have 2 pieces. Okay, so you usually start with 1 piece that's about A4 size, which is this piece here, and 1 piece which is about half that size. Okay, so you can do it with paper, but if you can get a slightly heavier card, it would work a lot better. So this piece here is A4, this piece here is half A4, and the piece that is A4, the first thing I'm going to do with it is put it down, and you can see here I've got a little score in the middle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in 2. So when I fold that in 2, I'm looking to fold it in half, so I just fold it in the middle, fold it in half, and make that fold nice and sharp. Okay, so take it A4, fold it in half, make that nice and sharp. And this is going to be what I call my base page. So my base page is the part that opens and closes, and the pop-up is the bit that pops up here. So the first thing I'm going to do with that is I'm going to just take my pencil and I'm going to just write my name on the front. And then I know that's my base page, and I'm going to put it here so that I keep it separate from my other page. So the second page I need is this one, and this is the one that's half an A4. Okay, so if you have A4 size sheets, just fold it in half, cut it, and you've got one that's half. So my one here, I'm going to fold this to make it into what I call a pop-up page. So a pop-up page is the part that pops up, and the base page is the page that opens and closes. So with my pop-up page, the first thing I do is do the same fold. So I look at it landscape, which is sideways like this, and I fold it in 2, like this, and I make that nice and sharp. And if I want to make my fold sharper, I can do it with a pencil like that. So when I open it up, I should have the same kind of fold. Okay, the next thing I want to do is to make what I call a flap fold. So the flap is the bit that sticks onto the base page and sticks it to the page. So what I do is I take the page that I have, I put it on the desk like a tent, so it should look a little bit like this. Put it like a tent, then I push it down, and what I'm going to do is I want to fold a flap. So I want to fold from here. And one fold flap is about 2 centimeters from the base. Okay, if you're going to fold this flap, I'd rather be bigger than 2 centimeters than smaller. Okay, so I always start in the middle so I can line up where my 2 folds are, and I fold from the middle out to the sides. So you're trying to make that fold nice and even. Always start in the middle and fold out either side. Okay, once I think I've got my fold just about right, I use the same thing. I use my pencil, or some people like to use the edge of their scissors, whichever you find easier and safe, and they make that fold really sharp. So the sharper the folds on a pop-up, the better your pop-up is going to work. So if I open that out now and I look in the middle, I should see 1 fold in the middle, and I should see 1 fold across the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm then going to cut. So if I go to cut this, cut here, and I cut from the bottom up to where those 2 folds meet and no further. So I make sure that's as far as I go, and I don't go up higher. If I go up higher, what I do is I cut into what's going to be the pop-up page, and I make it much weaker, and it's not going to work as well. Okay, so this is a page that's going to sit up. When it sits up, it's going to sit up like this. Okay, so you can see when I do that, I have little bits sticking out here and here. So what I usually do is I just cut those corners. So it's as simple as getting the thing, cutting an angle to there, and the same on the other side to there. And then when I hold it up, it becomes really hard to see the flaps. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to try and assemble my base page, which is this one, and my pop-up page, which is this one. Okay, so take your base page, open it out, and then you're going to put your pop-up page on it. So your pop-up page should look like this, so that it goes on like this. So there's a few things you want to do when you're putting on a pop-up page. One is the middle fold of your pop-up page and the middle fold of your base page need to line up. So you can see here I'm lining the 2 of them up so that the fold of my base page and the fold of my pop-up page are in the same place. I'm not putting it off to one side like that. I'm lining it up in the middle. The second thing is, can you see the way I'm placing this page on an upside down V? So it's this kind of shape, upside down V. And the reason being, if I place that straight across, it won't pop up. So the way paper engineering or pop-up works is that it needs that V fold to pull the page up and for the engineering to work. So I want to place that in the right place. And the third thing I want to do is I want to make sure it's going to fit within this when the page closes. So what I'm going to do is push it back on one side and just make sure that nothing is sticking out the edges. So all I do is line up my folds, make this into a V, put it near the front. It's going to go backwards. Put it near the front, and then I fold back one side and just make sure it's going to fit in. If when I fold it back there's a bit sticking out like this, you can do a couple of things. You can either go further up here, or if you find it's still sticking out, you can just change the angle, make the angle slightly less sharp. So instead of being like this, you can make it like this. It's still enough of an angle that it's going to make my pop-up work, but now my corner is in. So once I get that in the right place with a pencil, I mark here and here just to show, if you want, you can draw a line like that. And then you know where you're going to stick your base page, your pop-up page, okay? So my base page is laid out flat. I have my pop-up page ready to go. And the first thing I'm going to do is stick. So I've got my position lined out. When you're sticking, just use your little glue stick. You always stick one side first and make sure that side is really well stuck. So this is the side that I've marked my position. So I'm going to stick it on this flap. If you're looking at your pop-up page, you should be looking at the fold going inwards and to the back. And you're only going to stick on the flap, which is this bit at the bottom. So put my glue on. Okay. Make sure you've got plenty in here. So this point here where the folds are going to meet, that's one of the most important places to get stuck down really, really well. Because if that's stuck down really well, your pop-up page is much stronger. So I've got glue on this flap. I'm going to place it down. I've got my little line and 2 points here. So I'm going to place it exactly where I marked, just here. And then I'm going to hold it. And usually what I would do is I'd hold that for about 30 seconds. So if I usually swivel it around so I can see it. And I put all my fingers on here. And I usually count to 30. And I make sure while I'm holding it that it's definitely still, the folds match up here. So I can move it a tiny bit if I want. Make sure it's still in place. And I'm going to just glue it and hold it. Okay, so hold down nice and tight. Make sure you're holding especially tight around where the folds meet and this edge. But make sure the whole thing is glued down well. And make sure it's fully glued before you start on the next part. Okay, so when I have that fully glued down, I move it around. And if I look at it up here, it should look like I have one side glued on and this side is loose and free. So this is the side that's glued. So what I do is I push that page back so that it goes flat. I close the pop-up page over and I press my fold up. So what I'm seeing is the part of the fold, the part of the flap that I need to glue. So just to do that again, I push my page back, I fold it over, and then I can see the flap that I need to glue. So you always glue the second flap by pressing it down like this, put the glue on it. As before, make sure you have plenty of glue in the corners, and you always glue it by closing the page on top of it. And the reason you close the page on top of it is it will find the perfect position for your flap to stick. And the second thing is you know that your page is going to glue nice and flat. It's not going to be bumpy. Okay, so you always glue the second flap by closing the page on top. I usually press it down, usually wait about 10 seconds. And then what I do is I open it up. And when I open it up, it should be popping up. Okay, so you open it up and it's popped up. So what I usually do then as well is I just hold here for another 10, 15, 20 seconds and make sure I have everything glued in place. Okay, so that's the basics of how to make a basic pop-up. And now what we're going to do is learn how to make one with a design on it. So we're going to make a design for Dún Aonghasa, which is a really famous Irish monument, which is located on the Aran Islands in Galway. And we're going to learn how to use exactly the same technique to make a pop-up of Dún Aonghasa. So, to learn how to make a pop-up of our monument, what we're going to do is we start with exactly the same way we did last time. So the first thing we did last time is we had two sheets, one that was A4 and one that was smaller. So I've made this one, it's actually a little bit longer than half of A4, but I know it's still going to fit in. So you take your A4 sheet, you're going to fold it right along the middle, and fold it in two. So I have my one already folded, so you can see it's nice and sharp. And you just fold it in two and make sure you've got that nice and folded, and then that's going to be your base page. Okay, so again, I usually stick my name on top, Maeve, and I put that to one side so I know which that is. Okay, and I don't get it mixed up with my pop-up pages. Here's my second one, which is my nice wide pop-up page. We start the same way as last time. So we just put it landscape, which is this widthways. Then we take it, match up the corners, fold it in two. And once I think I've got the fold about right, I'm going to use the pencil or the edge of my scissors like this. And I should have a nice sharp fold there in the middle. So once we have it folded, what do we do next? We held it up so it looks a bit like a tent. And then we put it down and fold back from the top. So if you remember, I fold the middle bit first, then push all the way along the sides. And once I think I've got a good fold, I'm going to sharpen the fold here. There we go. And then open it up. So when we open it up, I should have one center fold going down here and one fold going across the bottom. So looking at it this way, what I want to do is cut my flap. So if you remember, you just cut from the bottom of the shortest part up to where those two folds meet and no further. Okay, if you remember last time, we cut off the edges of these so that the flaps won't be seen when it's stuck down. So 1 and 2. Okay, so all I've done is prepare my pop-up page for drawing. Okay, so if you remember last time, this is where we started sticking down. We started sticking down because we were just learning the paper engineering, learning how to make a pop-up. Before we stick this down, we need to draw our design on it. So I'm going to get my design, which I have here on my iPad. I'm just going to make sure that's, yeah, visible there. So I have my design on my iPad, which is, this is Dún Aonghasa in the Aran Islands. So this is a very old, very famous monument on the Aran Islands in Galway, which I hope some of you might have seen. If you haven't seen it, it's really worth going to. And I'm going to draw that design on here. So what I want to do is draw it in such a way that I get to see all of the monument, which is Dún Aonghasa, but that it looks interesting and that I maybe get some nice angles. So here I'm just speeding up the video to go through while I'm drawing. So if you want at this stage, press pause on your video and start drawing your design onto your pop-up page. Okay, you can see here I'm drawing with a marker to make it nice and clear. Draw with pencils, marker, whatever you prefer. Okay, and just make it a nice strong design. So I've slowed it down a tiny bit just to show me drawing an extra thick line around the edge of my design. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to cut along this line here. So take my scissors. I'm going to cut along that line. And the reason I'm cutting is when this pops up, it looks much more interesting if there's a really nice kind of cut out shape as part of my pop-up design. So if you remember the first one we made, it was just square, but this one, because we've got a design on it, we can add a little cutout and it's going to make your pop-up look much more interesting. So I'm just going to speed up again now to show as I'm adding colour. Okay, so the colour doesn't have to be on everything, but it's just a little bit of colour to highlight the design. So that is not bad. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick that down on my base page. So I'm going to put that up there for the moment, out of my way. So what I have now is my base page, which is my open and closing page, and I have my pop-up page, which has my design on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put the two together. So here's my base page. I'm going to open it out, and remember when we stuck down, we use exactly the same process, where we figure out first where this is going to go. So we take our pop-up page, and we do the three things, one of which is line up the fold from the base page and the fold from the pop-up page. We put it near the front, we make sure it's a V shape, and then what we do is really carefully fold it back and make sure it fits in. So mine isn't fitting in, so I might need to make my angle a little softer. And in fact, that's as much as I can get away with. I might actually just cut a tiny bit of this off because I think I'm making it very difficult for myself. So if I put it back, if I put it up like this, I'm just going to make sure that it fits in. So if I put it here, I think that'll fit in okay, like that. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up my two center folds. I've got a V angle, and I'm making sure that it fits in over here. So I'm going to mark that. I'm going to draw a little line and mark my 2 corner points. So you've got your mark here. So the next thing we always do, take our glue, put it on the flap on the side that we've marked. It goes over to one side. The glue, make sure it goes right to the corners. And then there. And stick it on. Okay, so when I stick it on, I turn around, look at the back, make sure that my folds are definitely lined up, and I usually hold here, nice and strong, make sure it's well stuck. Count to 30, once that's stuck, put it back. And just because I've just drawn that, I'm just going to put another piece of card in between in case the marker goes from one side to the other because it's still fresh. And then put my glue on. I'm going to close that over the top. Okay, so always glue the second side by closing the page on the top. Okay, so if I open it up, make sure it's well stuck at the back, but it should be that when I take it and I open it up, it should look like my Dún Aonghasa monument. Okay. So what I also have the option of doing is just here in front you can see that you have some space, so you always have a bit of the base page to draw on. So I'm actually going to draw with my marker. I'm going to draw a little bit of my design down here. And once again, I'm just speeding up through my drawing and colouring. So pause here if you want to add a little bit to your base page. So when we've finished, we should have a pop-up that is showing our Dún Aonghasa monument and has all of the detail there. Okay, so you can use this technique to make pop-ups of many other monuments that you might know about. So the first one here is obviously Dún Aonghasa. So this is your Dún Aonghasa one you've just made. Okay. The next one we're going to look at is Beehive Huts. So if you remember Beehive Huts. Okay, so it's done exactly the same way. It's just a V-fold pop-up and it's coloured in. The next one we made is Galore Tree, which is a really beautiful stone oratory down in Dingle and Kerry. So Galore looks a little bit like this. This, and it's Galore. So you can see I'm choosing ones that, and you can see how I'm cutting them, but I'm cutting them so you can see the shape of the monument. And you're trying to make sure you keep the shape and don't hide it. The next one we have here is a crannog. So this is actually based on a crannog built in Cragganaun in Quinn, which is in County Clare. So this is a crannog. So that's a crannog with the wattle and daub and the fencing. Okay, so that's the crannog one. And then the final one I did was Glendalough, which is very close to where I'm from, which is Glendalough in County Wicklow. Okay, so that's the round tower and the old Christian church in Glendalough. Okay, so you can see with this technique of making pop-ups, you can make your Dún Aonghasa pop-up, which is a really famous Irish monument and based in Galway. But what you can also do is use the same technique to make pop-ups of any monument you like. Okay, so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get to try more than one monument, and best of luck.